Okay. All right, welcome everyone to Runes Part 3. Tonight's class is called Up from the Well of Urd, Fate, Divination, and the Runes. As you can imagine, tonight's rune class centers on runic divination. We'll be covering different ways to read the runes, including casting, drawing, and using rune layouts. And I will now pass out a handout. If you want to just take one and pass them around.
No, you could have just said you want a handout. That would have been funny.
Yeah, we can hand out a handout. That handout will have the basic rune meeting
I don't want to go home, so
as we learn them.
where are we going?
There you go. There should be like 12 of them. I counted correctly. We should have. So this handout has the meanings of the runes as we learned them in classes 1 and 2, as well as some details about the layouts that we'll be using tonight that you can have as a future study guide. So, next slide, please.
Well, this is a cheat sheet. I like it.
Yes, it has the meanings and it has some information, and it's the first of many handouts that you'll be receiving as part of this series of classes.
I'm gonna go through and make the thing there.
Yeah, you can draw. I didn't put the little drawing on there, but you can sketch them out
It's even
yourself.
better than that because it's got enough space there so that people like myself, for instance, it helps us to see like almost flashcard like, and they think, oh, yeah, no
Yeah.
space for notes and whatnot.
Yes, and there will be a handout that does have the shape on it. That'll be coming in a future class. So who here has done divination work with runes before? Anyone?
I had my runes read once.
Okay.
It's really very.
I once attended a pagan class with this person who does runes named Birch. Maybe you've heard of her?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I've met her, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds fun.
And who has done divination using other tools and runes? Okay, which kinds have you used before?
Tarot.
Tarot,
And pendulums.
pendulums,
Mhm.
bones,
Fire gazing, phone gazing.
fire gazing.
I've done fire gazing, tarot, and believe it or not, something that called like divination from TV in the sense of you say something, but you switch channels enough and see whatever they're saying might correlate. They seem to work.
TV man,
It's a
okay.
form of
Okay, that's interesting.
bibliomancy.
Yeah.
Very modern form of bibliomancy, basically.
Tea leaves.
Oh, yeah, tea leaves, for sure. for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of different types of divination out there, and runes are just one of many. And so if you're familiar with them, there's some similarities, some differences that we'll be touching on throughout this class as well. But it's, you can kind of compare and contrast how it all works. Next slide. All right, so divination with the runes is a very ancient practice with no discernible origin in written history. I talked before about Tacitus, the Roman author, who wrote a description of ancient Germany at the time of the Roman contact. And he described how the Germans would cut sticks from a fruit-bearing tree and inscribe symbols on them, and then use those symbols to divine intentions and do other forms of divination. And last class about the rune Pethro, which is said to contain the power of the pear tree, and the pear tree being a fruit-bearing tree native to the same area, also tied in with fate. Very likely that those were in fact pear trees, but he never specified which tree they were using. He also did not specify what the symbols were, what they looked like, or any other details that modern rune workers would be very happy to have if only they could. We don't even know any great detail about their methods. But according to Tacitus, what he did say was that the head of the household would take the runes, face north, close their eyes, invoke the gods, and cast the runes onto a white cloth, or cast the wood blocks onto a white cloth. And then on that cloth, they would choose 3, and they would do a reading based upon those 3 that they saw. And interpret them based upon the question that was asked. Again, he doesn't give literally any other detail. That was his entire paragraph. 1 paragraph. We know a little bit more about later rune reading and practices, such as those that occurred during the Viking Age. And we also have a lot of modern scholarship and work that has been done in the last century. And that is where a lot of what we currently use as rune divination and magic actually comes from. The practice itself, as we learned it, is more like 800 years old than Elder Futhark era, which again, we're using the Elder Futhark runes. So we're going to base tonight on these same Reconstructionist principles and study tonight. Next slide. So as part of this reconstruction, there is one singular debate that a lot of heathens I've seen get very into when it comes to runes. That is, what happens when the runes are flipped, mirrored, reversed, or upside down? Does that or does that not change its meaning? The debate can be summarized fairly easy, and in the interest of scholarship, I'm not going to come down hard on either side. My personal theory is I think this really depends on what you're doing and what the runes are trying to convey. Because sometimes runes are a very intuitive system, and it's hard to say there's one hard and fast rule that applies to everything.
Exactly right answer.
So the main argument from the no side says, our ancestors didn't do that, it came from tarot. Well, again, we don't actually know what our ancestors did.
Tarot's European and the other one's across the world. There's no way they could have connected. But okay.
Well, there's, again, like I said, it's most of the modern conventions of reading have evolved in the last century.
Yeah.
So there is some argument that yes, as they're drawing from these other sources, when you're reconstructing, very often, since there's nothing here, you pull from over here and you bring it in. So it is true that in tarot, the cards mean something different when they're reversed. And yes, the concept probably did come from tarot, in all honesty, but that does not make it untrue. We do not necessarily know if they believe there is any change in meaning or not. We have no evidence one way or the other because we have no surviving firsthand accounts from when the Elder Futhark was being used. The yes side asserts that it does make a difference, and that there is a discernible change in the energy or meaning when a rune is upside down or backwards. And they also point out that the younger Futhark runes, which we do know more about, are often written sideways or upside down. Was that because of the rock or because it meant something specific? We do not know, but it was often written in different directions. Next slide. So in the interest of scholarship, like I said, I'm going to go through the different ways that the runes can be shifted in direction and what that would mean according to the people who are on the yes side. If you choose to not follow this particular line of thought, you are free to simply listen and make your own conclusions. Reversible runes. These are runes which can be flipped side to side and appear different, but will be the same on the vertical axis. I have a few pictures of a couple examples here, Hagalaz and Sowilo. In divination, this doesn't really come up because if you're working with a rune that is drawn on a piece of wood and you're tossing it, it's not going to magically flip around like that in the middle of being cast because it's already been written down. However, when I have sensed anything from this, it's usually when the rune lands sideways. So it's neither up nor down, but it's just level with me on the perpendicular. It does not completely negate the meaning of the upright rune, but it does imply that there is something preventing the rune's energy from reaching its full potential, which is how it's usually used magically. This is often used magically to invert the rune is to subvert or change the rune's energy slightly without completely undermining it when you're using rune magic. So again, I have a Hagalaz and a Sowilo on the slide. These ones, again, if you flip them vertically, they will look the same, but they can be knocked sideways, twisted. Sowilo, for example, is the rune of the sun, personal ambition and willpower. Cannot be inverted, it cannot be restrained, but if it falls sideways in a reading, maybe that's an indication of some uncertainty or self-doubt. Not a lot, but maybe like there's a little seed of doubt somewhere within this reading. That would be one way to interpret that kind of sign. Next slide. Okay, inverted runes. These runes will be the same from side to side, but which will change on the vertical axis when you flip them upside down. If you follow the reversal theory, this works the same way as a reverse tarot card. It completely negates or reverses the intention or meaning of the rune. And again, if you're working with general rune magic, this will be a way of stopping the rune's power. So to take the example of Iwas, shown on the top there, upright, it means transportation, movement, car. If you get it upside down in a reading, you might be saying like, okay, there's clearly some kind of roadblock, something's not working, car trouble. You're not going to be going anywhere, is basically what that would be implying. Next slide. So I'm referring to as changeable runes. These are runes where they can be done either flipped side to side or they can be flipped upside down for a noticeable change. This is the most common situation for the runes. I have both a Feihu and a Wunjo. Again, if it's upside down, that completely reverses the magic. If you have it flipped on its side, that more impedes the magic. So say you have, again, a Feihu on its side, there might be some money issues, but you might be able to get around it. Upside down, you're facing some serious financial difficulties right now with these sort of the implications. Next slide. Then we come to the other side of the coin, which is the runes where things do not change so easily. There are 9 non-invertible runes, runes that cannot have a reverse side. Gable, Hagalaz, Nauthiz, Isa, Jera, Iwas, Sowilo, Ingus, and Dagas. No matter how they land, up or down, they cannot be reversed. 5 of them can be flipped on the other axis, turned around, but they cannot be completely turned around. And those 5 which can be reversed, though not completely inverted, are Hagalaz, Nauthiz, Iwas, Sowilo, and Jera. We already looked at Hagalaz and Jera on the earlier slide. Next slide. Which then leaves us with 4 unchangeable runes. I have Ingus on here because sometimes Ingus is drawn with just the diamond shape. And in its plain diamond shape, it is, again, symmetrical on all 4 sides. Gabo, Isa, Ingus, and Dagas. They can be neither weakened nor strengthened nor reversed into their opposites. You see, Gabo, no matter what you do, it still would imply a gift. And so their existence throws another wrench into the flip or in changing meaning debate. Is there some special power to daylight or a gift or to ice that prevents this magic from either being reversed or completely inverted as compared to, say, money, need, or fire? It's a good question, huh? Or is it that the runes don't vary in meaning based upon their direction, and that the reading on those implications has to come from other sources than from a direct reading of the runes itself. As I said, it's not an easy question to answer because there's a lot of good evidence, magically speaking, on either side. Or maybe there is just some special power to these 4 runes, which means that they cannot be changed. And there is something special about them. It's a good question and definitely one worth considering, especially as you work more with runes. I've been doing this for years. I still don't really have a clear answer in my own head, whether or not there's something innately special about these, or if we're just looking at things and trying to put too much tarot into the runes.
It could be both.
Could be both. I don't know. Next slide. Okay. I promise you to talk about fate. There is no way to have a serious discussion about runes and divination without touching upon fate within the heathen context. The heathen and Norse view of fate is worthy of a full hour-long lesson on its own. I do not have time for that, nor am I going to put you through it right now. In lieu of that, you're all going to get a crash course in Orlog, Word, Frigg, the Norns, and Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and how they relate to the runes. So, first, Orlog. You imagine a loom, right? I totally did not bring my loom. But imagine that you have a loom, okay? And there are the straight threads that go up and down across the loom, right? The warp. Orlog is the warp of the universal loom. Before you can put in any weft horizontally, it has to be there first for the weft to go into. It means the first law, and it comprises the insurmountable fate. Sound unrealistic? You don't believe in insurmountable fate? Well, think about your DNA. No matter how hard you want to change your DNA or the DNA of something around you, it would take a bucket load of modern science, and we've all seen those sci-fi movies, right? Something is gonna go wrong if you try. And this is why even the gods are subject to Orlog and the insurmountable fate. Perhaps they could change it. But just like we would not want to go around creating dinosaurs and unleashing them in a park, they probably do not want to go messing with Orlog because you don't know what will happen next.
Does that tie in also to how after a certain point, humans will, their body will basically recycle itself and have the newest version of itself kind of situation as well?
Kind of, yes. Again, we're referring to not just like an individual or even a personal fate. We're referring to the very fate of the universe.
Gotcha.
This is how things have to turn out according to this multiversal plan. Maybe there's another multiverse somewhere that has a different Orlog, but if you start crossing the two, you're gonna end up with a huge mess.
Could you look at it as you're dealt a hand at birth
Yes,
and it's the way you play it?
exactly, precisely. Because the second point is the weird. As in Shakespeare's Weird Sisters, weird corresponds to the weft of the loom, and it's the thread that we insert throughout our lives against the overall pattern of the universe. The length of our weird is the length of our life. It is predetermined at our birth by the Norns, but unlike Orlog, we do have some flexibility with our weird. I cannot change my DNA, but I can change how I present myself. I can decide how I want my hair to look, my clothes, my actions, my decisions. All those things play up against the Orlog, but I still have some determination over them, how I choose to live my life.
You're absolutely right. It's like the free will kind of thing, and no one really knows, as far as I can tell, when you're born, what dominant hand you're gonna have, the left or the right. It's like you never find it, but then once you find that information out, it's like, okay, now I have just a little bit of wiggle, but not everything.
Exactly, because no matter how much you dictate things, you cannot extend the length of your life. Skuld holds that thread. When the thread is done, the thread is done. You aren't going to be able to get yourself more life. So it's best to live the life that you can Live it as well as you can and know that you could die at any minute, so you may as well make it worth it. Third, Frigg. Frigg's distaff is sacred. It makes the threads that the Norns weave into Orlog and Weird on the sacred tapestry of the universe and into every living, non-living, and divine being in it. That is her power as the All-Mother. And in this, we can see the thousands of year-old link between her and the Germanic Earth Mother deities like Frau Perchta, even though we don't know a whole lot about her and her worship because most of that wasn't written down. The fact that she can weave fate itself tells us a lot about her power and the power of the spinning and the loom and the wheel and all those lovely fiber magics.
Absolutely.
Now, do you see why I love them so much?
The distaff is the tool that you collect the spinning yarn on. So you're spinning yarn and you're collecting it on a cone. The distaff. So she makes the yarn and then the fates deal it out.
Exactly. She makes it and the fates hand it out. So she is at the root of all fate, you might say. Fourth, the Norns. The three Norns, Erd, Verhandi, and Skuld, feed the world tree's roots with water from their well, which is called Erd's well. To continue the tapestry analogy, Erd controls everything that has already been woven. So you imagine the weaving of your life, everything that's there, visible, that's her. Verhandi controls the present moment, that instant when word loops in underneath the Orlog. So the moment when your weird is like put into, your little weaving motion. And then Skuld controls the line of the unwoven future, the yarn that has not yet been connected to Orlog. And she controls all of that up until the end, which is death. And so fifth, Yggdrasil, the world tree. This universal tree is watered by the roots from the well of Erd, all that has ever been, you might think of it. It links all 9 worlds. It connects to the runes because Odin, Frigg's husband, hung himself above Erd's well in order to pull up the runes and see the fundamental writing and symbolic system underlying the universe. So that is where fate and the runes connect, is on Yggdrasil. When we work with the runes, we are interacting with all 5 of these forces in differing ways. We are studying the tapestry of Orlog and Weird, woven with the threads spun and collected by Frigg, the All-Mother, linked by past, present, and future from Erd, Verhandi, and Skuld, and drawn up from the universal subconscious to the universal tree, where they were inscribed with the blood of Odin, the All-Father. So when we divine with the runes, we are studying that pattern of Orlog and Weird as dictated by the Norns and directed by Frigg. We can barely hope to see more than a few stitches before or after because we're only human. Even Odin himself needed the ghost of the most powerful Volva witch to look ahead at the end of time and see Ragnarok. Even he didn't have that kind of power on his own. So whatever layout we use, whatever method we choose to read the runes, it's just a different way of studying the same vast universe-sized tapestry of fate. So with that, let's go over some of these rune divination methods. Next slide. Okay, so for this part, we're going to be practicing different kinds of rune divination. So you may want to just think of like a simple question or two that you might have, even like every month when we do the bloats, I'll often just ask something simple like, what do I need to know about the next month? Just to get an idea, but any question you might have that you're wondering about.
Are you talking about like how similar this is a tarot or to the pendulum, right? So like a control question first, just to test the water.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just saying, you might want to just think of one question that you can ask in different ways to kind of see how it pans out differently as you do different ones. Because if you ask a different question at each rune pull, you're not really gonna see the similarities and differences as easily. Is all. So this is a skill that, like reading tarot or any other form of divination, can take years of practice. I have therefore all the meanings put on the worksheet in front of you. But as I'm sure you've probably realized by now, there are nuances to these meanings, layers of intention, which are not easily summarized. As you work with the runes more and more and get to know them, it can become easier. But you can work on reading them for years and still constantly discover new things, new ways, new connections, new ways of reading and looking at the same rune. So I'm gonna just kind of go over these. I'll do like a little example. You guys can ask yourselves a question, practice the example too. So we're gonna use I'm gonna go over a couple of layouts. One I'm just gonna explain. The other, the other one we can also do a practice on. It's just the second one is more involved. It's the tree of Yggdrasil. So you should have on your thing, you should have a paper where it says the four-fold wheel.
Oh, yeah, that's in the back though.
Yeah. Yeah, so the four-fold wheel, and if you wanna,
Yes, I'm gonna, come up.
yeah, it's, wondered maybe you,
What do you want me to do?
well, if you wanna just use the table, it might just be easier.
Yeah.
You're gonna do the runes.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to be doing it in your lap.
Yeah, doing your lap might be a little harder. Doing it at the table.
Once I just.
So the four, yeah, so we'll let Canada get kind of situated there a little bit if we need to. This that way. Canada, we're gonna just bring your chair forward,
Okay.
just so you can reach the table.
So glad we got that Steve.
There we go, yeah. Okay, so the four-fold wheel is a room layout I got from Freya Aswin's book, The Leaves of Yggdrasil. It he recommends having like a rune or a bind rune in the center to represent your question. For tonight, if you can think of one that would work on the paper, you can use it, or you can just kind of hold the question in your mind and just picture it at the center of something like this wheel. So at the top of the wheel, oh, next slide. Okay, so at the top of the wheel, it is the higher plane influences. And at the bottom of the wheel are the subconscious influences. To the left-hand side are the past influences controlled by Earth. And to the right-hand side are future influences controlled by Soul. So you pull four runes and you place the four runes along the 4 points of that circle.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
So you just pull
pull,
four random ones?
yeah, you just pull out four runes and you place them in a circle.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's.
Who I pulled for us?
yeah,
One at a time.
Wait.
one at a time, or I
That's
guess
what I'm doing.
four. I mean, yeah,
I mean, I pulled four automatically, so.
yeah, if you pull four automatically, I mean, that's fine too.
I remember my very first ever divination thing that I made way back when was simply two stones, one black, one white, in a bag, and it was like a yes or no thing I used for years. I would always pick through it, so that's why I'm gonna pick individually, because I'm not used to, you know.
Yeah, so you take the four and you put them in a circle.
I'll do it over here.
And then I have a blank circle, if you wanna like write down your pull after you're done, you have the.
I thought it was just easier to put them on there, cause this.
Yeah, you can put them on there,
Yeah, do it your own, yeah, I'm just,
you know,
I'm being kind of.
I'm just saying if you wanna write them down, you can too, or it's up to you.
I would just,
Yeah,
oh, there's no, look, cause this here.
that will lead through.
Marker, or pen,
Writing utensil, that doesn't do for.
I do.
Carl, are the pencils in that cabinet?
Oh, look at all, I'm getting pretty. I've already got.
Right in that cabinet, the center basket is the pencil.
Yeah, we can grab some pencils.
Exterior on that, make that nice.
He was trying, he was just jumping for joy. He was just jumping for joy, that's all.
Okay.
You know, he's excited.
Thank you.
She is excited.
Bolts by the neck, stand, I was gonna jump that.
So once you get your runes kind of arranged in a circle, you can look up the runes. Now I do see why I needed that, well, we have a piece of paper here that shows their name. If you
Actually,
look up.
it says,
It's in.
Yeah,
Why I wrote the name on the back.
what is yours?
there you
I did
go.
the same thing.
I do, yeah.
What's
Yeah.
here?
And so then, as you go through it, you can see, so I had under past influences, Jera, which refers to the year or the cycle. Then, higher plane influences, Kenaz. Kenaz referring, of course, to illumination, fire, controlled intellect. Under future influences, Berkana. Berkana refers to a lot of feminine magic, goddess magic, that kind of energy. And I have under subconscious influences, Pestro. Pestro being a rune of chance, fate.
Oh,
Yeah.
guess what I'm trying to look for right now is.
Yeah.
Let's put the word that I had underneath it. Is that the meaning on the black thing?
Now, Birch, if it's facing like that, would that change the meaning for it?
Well,
If it's
I mean, again, that's kind of where it's up to you. If you're kind of getting that vibe from it, maybe just make a note that it came in sideways. Cause is that a Petra?
Yep.
Yeah,
And we would place the room pools and places exactly where we feel they should go, correct?
well, I did it kind of in order.
Gotcha, okay,
I started in the past and just went around the circle.
okay.
I can't, your fingers.
anybody.
It is a circle, so technically a circle has no beginning and no end.
That's what I
The
did.
dog says,
So then. The fourth filled wheel is a good rune pull to use. Especially if you are working with,
I see it, but if you.
you know, like a question and you're trying to get like a general sense of like, okay, what influenced me and what am I being influenced by? What things do I need to pay attention to? You know, so it's a good one for that. If what you're after is like, okay. Cause you know, you have the You have all of them. And if you ever do this one, and it can be expanded upon, where you, because as you can see, it's set up like a compass, north, south, east, and west. There is a variation of the four-fold wheel, that is an eight-fold wheel, where you then put 4 more runes at the intersections of northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. And each of those 4 will kind of have elements of both in them. So for example, a rune between, the past influences and the higher influences, which are like, okay, what were the higher influences in the past? What were the subconscious influences in the past? What will be the higher influence in the future? What will be the higher influences in the past? If you want just a little bit more detail. But otherwise, as a simple 4-fold wheel is again good just for having a quick answer to see what things to watch out for, what is pulling you as you work through a certain question.
This is like the fun part, I guess, because now you got the rune and then think, okay, how am I going to inwardly find out all the pieces, the puzzle pieces are there, how are they going to put them all together to how it affects my life and how does this pertain to me?
Exactly.
I would say that, I know you're going to get to this in a minute, which I'm looking forward to. The tree of Beauty, that is like the what's it called, the Kabbalah, like the tree of life situation, it like transcends so many different things.
Yes.
It's very interesting that they have that here as a connection.
Yes, that's gonna be the next one I'm gonna be
Yeah, that-
talking about.
Yeah.
I'll just give everyone about a minute or so to get organized with the simpler ones. We're not gonna do the full Tree of Asgard as a reading because it has 9 runes in it, and that's 9 runes is gonna be too complicated for tonight. But I am gonna explain about it a little bit, just so you can see and at least know when it's gonna be used for. All right.
But what do you think about this?
Okay.
My higher influences is the horse,
Okay.
partnership, astral travel, cars, horsepower. My subconscious influences is the torch, control, fire, understanding, clarity, insight, passion. My past influences is the hurricane, destruction, renewal, crone, disruptions, shadow self, cosmic potential. And my future influences cattle, money, payment, credit, and prosperity.
Do you know what your question was?
You had to ask a question?
You
Well,
really like
if you don't ask a question, I mean, it would just give you more of a general
You got
sense of what's going on.
I was thinking about my writing career.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, for that one, I could definitely see how, your higher influences, obviously with your writing, you're wanting to spread the knowledge of what you have out there, right? Like your knowledge is subconscious right now. And you want to get it out there.
protection.
And so AWA, your higher influence is like, okay, I want this
Of course.
to go beyond me into the wider world.
Let me see.
In the past, obviously you've tried a few different methods to get this out there, right? You've had some really good luck with Llewellyn, it's an amazing journey, and then future, that's a good time, future money, future influences, right?
Hey, Birch. I may have written it down incorrectly,
I think that's supposed to be an algaes.
because oops.
It should have like the little cross the arms.
Yeah, like a Y almost. with-
Yeah, lot.
Chicken foot.
Oh,
Chicken
yeah, I think they just threw it strangely. So I mean, in that case,
But I don't
could.
find it on here. It's on some-
Okay, maybe you're missing a page.
Like, I'm not sure if it, so what I saw over
There were
here,
a few places where you might have been missing a page. hold on, let me see if I can find you. Cause there was something with a missing page, I think. Ah, yes, here, you might be missing. Some of that, there was some extra pages, I couldn't tell where they were missing from, that might be some of it.
Maybe it's spelled,
ALGIZ,
oh, it's spelled differently on there, that's why,
okay,
that's
yeah,
why, it's spelled with an E on there, that's why I'm having a, okay, I'm having.
okay, yeah.
Found it.
Oh, ALGIS?
Yes,
I'm
it's
saying,
just spelled differently, that's all.
Yeah,
Oh,
the thing with a lot of these is there are variations in the spelling depending on which source you're using.
Got it.
want to get as close to dramatic,
Thank you.
otherwise it's possible. So
Yeah,
then it's like-
I use the traditional Tacitus ALGIZ because I'm old school.
Got it.
And at the end of the day, it's like either a Z or an S, kind of like, okay, yeah. which
Yeah,
one?
well, A or E, I mean,
Mhm.
same letter. All right. So, do we need another moment?
I have mine, very interesting.
Okay.
My airplane is UAS. That change transformation. And use drill, what is that? I don't know what. And then my subconscious was manas,
Okay,
community, togetherness, cooperation, intellectual efforts, and mutual aid. Okay. And the past was pro,
okay,
potential, fate, decisions, randomness, hidden talents, the unexpected. And the future is how I was.
justice and,
Martial prowess, righteousness, paladins, justice, honor, speaking of my truth.
okay. Well, that's a pretty good omen for you having a croning next week, I would say.
Yeah, I think this is working.
All right, well, if this is working, I'm gonna talk to you next about the tree of Yggdrasil.
All right.
The tree of Yggdrasil, next slide. This is a more in-depth reading, which is why and it can be used to orient yourself around a problem by looking at it from different psychological angles. I also got this one from Freya Aswin in her Leaves of Yggdrasil. It's a good reading to do if you're unsure of your own thoughts and feelings regarding a particular problem, because it approaches it from a lot of different angles all at once. And it goes from sort of a deep internal shadow self, working your way through your thoughts and feelings up to your higher self. And each of these are represented by the 9 worlds connected to the tree of Yggdrasil, hence the name Tree of Yggdrasil. The way to work this layout is to start in Niflheim, which is the realm filled with the fog of the unclear mind. From there, you go up through Jotunheim, symbolizing chaos, like that.
Oh, yeah.
Hell, or Helheim, which is a place of hidden truth. Then you go up again through Svartalfheim, which is the realm of transmutation, and Lightelfheim, the realm of thought. You go to Midgard, Earth, which is the center of the ego. Then you go up again to Muspelheim for inspiration, Vanaheim for the emotions, and finally you reach Asgard, the realm of the higher self. And each rune that you pull and place on the tree of Yggdrasil will offer some insight into how those different aspects of your psychological profile are handling this particular problem. So like I said, it is a much more involved reading, but it is good, especially if you're experiencing a lot of uncertainty about how you feel about regarding
No.
a particular course of action. So we're not gonna take the time to go through that one because that one really can take a while to really assess and analyze and get through. So next slide. All right. This is my personal favorite mode of rune casting. If I had a choice, I just love drawing the runes. They're so much fun. So there's 3 different rune draws I'm going to touch on tonight. We'll practice 2 of them. Those are the single rune and the 3 rune draw. Technically, you can draw as few or as many runes as you need to in order to do the reading. Usually, it would be 1 or 3 or 9. My best results come from 3. Because the 1 rune draw I find is oftentimes just not detailed enough, and the 9 is just a little too detailed. So like a 1 rune draw is really good for a quick reading. You can see Iggy and Needful at the front here on the camera.
Iggy fell down.
Iggy fell down.
It's a crime scene.
Well, there's a bit of chaos, as I mentioned, Jotunheim.
I
It's
just-
not their fault.
That part is kind of funny.
Not their fault. They actually both received their names and their runes from a version of a 1 rune draw, where you pull out a single rune, and it's a quick reading, deals with simple answers to a simple question. In this case, what should we name this troll? I was like, drum roll. We pulled it out, and there was an ink gloss. Hence, he is Iggy. He is a very hopeful and springy troll. You also have Needful, who has Nalfi, the rune of need. So in this case, they both got their names based on a 1 rune draw. But there are some disadvantages to it. It is a very simple. There's really no clear temporal or spatial relevance to this question. So if you're asking just a simple question, it might be fine, but I prefer a little bit more detail. So if you want, you guys can take your runes and just pull out a single rune in regards to your question and see what you get.
I'm shaking it for emphasis.
Okay,
What'd you get?
so I got an Uruz.
I got a white. Well, this.
I got Othala.
You got an Otola.
Oh,
You
did
got
I?
an Algiz.
I might have just shoved my runes in the wrong.
Yeah, blank one.
I think I might have shoved my runes in the wrong head, like mistaken.
I got a
Oh, you got an Uruz too.
I got a rock.
Uruz twins. Lagos. Okay.
Othala.
Yeah, many. I got a.
Ancestry.
Here, I'll look back at my own
Values.
I know.
Mere sanctums.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you can see you get like, okay, so like, here's your answer. It's like a simple 1-word answer. You can dig into it for some extra meaning, but it's just a clear, simple thing. And like I said, if you're trying to name a gnome or a troll, it is absolutely perfect. Couldn't ask for better.
Let's translate.
I pulled that one, the one I just did, and his name would be Homie.
He would be the homie. Then the next variation of this is the 3 rune draw. This is the one that I use at the blokes that you've seen me use. And the way the 3 rune draw works as I do it is I call upon Urd, Berhandi, and Skuld to speak to me through the runes about what is being folded. So the first rune you call upon Urd to show what has been. Oh, here, there's a Jira again in the Urd position. Then you call upon Berhandi to represent where you are and what is happening. Then you call upon Skuld for the future. So the advantages of the 3 rune draw, it's a quick reading. It's easy to fit into a ritual. It tells a clear story, which is also very helpful if you're working in a ritual setting where people may not be as familiar with the runes. So it lets you kind of tell a beginning, middle, and end. And of course, there's, it's not a super specific one. But as a general outline of what to do, it's very helpful. So I got a Jera, which is again the cycle of the seasons, time, harvest. I got a Feihu, representing money and transferable wealth. And I got an Algies for protection. So from this, I might draw a conclusion about, in the past, I've, made some good choices. Now I'm seeing a decent money, and I need to focus on protecting that money moving forward. Might be one way of interpreting it.
Well, I shared this with, but it's just really
Yeah.
funny. So. Little ruse, right?
Mhm.
Health and strength. So I just got over my little cold.
Yeah.
It's been pretty vicious. And then. You'll have to tell me the Birch,
For Con?
yeah, Burkana. So, which is funny because it was fertility's feminine power and such. So today I did my prep for a women's business council. I am leading on
There you go.
on Tuesday morning.
And
But
what-
I'm like, that's just like. oh.
And what's the last one?
The last one,
Wunjo
no, the thorn.
or Thorn?
So strength, protection, warding, and aggression, because we're also talking about stereotypes about women in certain male-dominated businesses.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things we deal with all the time is a lot of aggression.
Yeah.
It's just, which is funny.
That is pretty funny.
That moment when you say these, this made no real
Oh, really?
crap it is, yeah.
Okay, so
That's just a little too much.
I was
Yeah, right, maybe, just a little.
a Jera and a Dagas. Okay, so, wow.
References.
What the?
What you got? What you got?
Birch screams and runs out of the room.
Right, I'm like, trying to make heads or tails of this one.
Emotional.
Because I was deals a lot with like transformation, but with an element of sacrifice to it. Jera means that something that has been in the works, implied here something that has been transforming, something that probably was a painful transformation, has now reached its conclusion. And you are now at a point between two different futures regarding it. Did you not say that your foot just healed?
That's what I'm gonna go with now, but I think it's something else, and I think you and I know what I'm talking about.
There might be other things too, but. Yeah, you had a hard period, you are hitting a point of completion. And now there is a certain, a bit of uncertainty about where things are gonna go next. It's kind of in a balancing act. Oh, you're condo.
Was like condo or there's a baby?
Now, we would have told you this, baby, you would know that right off the.
Yeah.
Well, that would be like the con all over the place.
Yeah, it's the condo, cause we just got the room done.
We just got it done, and now we have to do kind of like part two of the drywall and everything, but as it stands right now, like. One thing is done finally, yeah, but I was thinking more along the lines of, if you don't mind me saying, my love. Your career in the future, now I think you're
Could be
winding
that too.
down, maybe that.
Could be a bit
Because
that,
you're transitioning, yeah.
yeah. And again, so it could refer to a number of things, and this is where, having a few, like adding in a 9 rune pull.
Mhm.
Could be helpful to get some more clarification, so what you would do here is you would then pull
Two
two
more for each of-
additional runes for each thing. And so then you would have 2 more for the past, 2 more for the present, and 2 more for the future. And then those additional runes can help you narrow down which thing it's referring to.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah, so you would be pulling out runes for clarification as opposed to like. Some people do that in tarot, but I really personally have never really seen it as much, I never did it, but it's like,
Use clarifiers when you don't
Yeah.
like the message.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, shuffling it, right? It's like shuffling it, I don't like that.
where again, with the runes, what we're looking at is a glimpse into the tapestry underwriting Orlog and Birch. The interactions of your individual actions versus the overall fate that you're set against in the universe.
Yeah.
So by drawing more runes, you're just getting a little bit bigger of a picture.
Gotcha.
So you put transition,
Did it help?
I don't know what all they mean.
Okay. So, oh my gosh, you got another Jera?
That's why I don't.
why you always like to shop at everyone?
And then you got a radho, which is like the road, the direction traveled. You have. Okay, I guess that's Behu meaning money, Uruz meaning strength, and again, that painful transformation. So there's an element of financial and it required a lot of strength, but there's a financial element to it.
Yeah.
It's reached a point of completion and it's taken you a while to get there.
It's still 50/50.
And again, you're still dealing with an element of liminality in the future, but there's a seed of potential
Yeah.
laying ahead of you. And
Yeah, that's what I'm smelling. I'm smelling career there. That's
Manos has to do a lot with your community and your place within it, as well as, which could imply career, but it also has elements of like your home.
We're doing stuff.
Like, where you,
Don't say that. Don't do it. We're actually in the process right now of trying to plan. We're gonna move the huge bookcase from the back to the front.
You have a new room, you have to figure out what to do.
so,
Don't get ahead of us.
so,
Have you ever thought about starting your own business? There's a seminar coming up.
We can get part of it.
You wanna talk about women in business?
I'll accept the applications.
Clarify the night with my cords.
There you go.
Also, on that.
yeah, so that is a demonstration of when you would use a 9 rune draw. You get a a 3 rune reading and you're like,
What?
huh?
I got.
And then you go pull out a couple more runes, and then it kind of shines a little bit more clarity on the issue. It's not something that you would necessarily do in every single reading. Like you saw, some people you're like, oh my gosh, this is blindingly obvious. And other times you're like, huh.
That left field is very wide.
You know, so
Yeah.
then we're gonna have one last method to practice today. And we are going to do this old school. So north is that way, right?
Right.
Okay. So everyone get your runes back in the bag. All right, we're doing this old school, guys.
Top Wheels like children, I love it.
That's doing old school, all right? So we're gonna face the north, and we're gonna do this the way Tacitus said it was done back in the old days, as closely as I can mirror it, okay?
Throwing them?
Face the north, and we're gonna, and just, repeat after me. Strength, great mother.
Great
mother. Odin, all father.
Odin, all father.
We seek your guidance through the runes.
We seek your guidance through the
runes. Erd, Verhandi, Skull.
Verhandi, Skull.
Speak to us of what has been.
Speak to us of what has been.
Of what is becoming.
Of what is becoming.
And what is yet to be.
And what is yet to be.
Now, take your runes and toss them onto the table in front of you until you have 9 upright facing runes.
I'm just going to wait.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You just use the upright ones?
Yeah, just use the upright ones.
Well, I had the genius idea of writing the English words on the back of it, so now I'm not flipping, but okay.
And if you end up with your pen, well,
Just do the pictures.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I put the other 3 back, correct? If-
Well, you can just leave them there. You can just leave them there. That's
How many
okay.
are going? 9?
Yeah, just toss until you get 9 upright runes and leave them kind of where you toss them if you can.
Oh, I'm just like, yep.
Yeah,
Too late.
just toss them out. And then you just, because part of it, oh, next slide. I think we need to go for another slide. You might
Part of
get a
it
few
is where
slides
they
back.
land.
Okay, next slide again.
Oh, I gotta do this again.
Yes.
Okay.
Grind it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the one that's actually fairly close to osteomancy, as practiced by P.K. Tomioka. Um,
I believe that.
so what you're looking for here are patterns within the tops. Are there runes which are closer together, runes which are farther apart? Which runes are closely linked and which ones are not? And as you look at these, you kind of want to, look at the patterns and try and decipher what they mean. This is where, again, you're most likely to encounter upside down, sideways, and twisty runes, and where it's most likely to actually mean something.
Well, I have mine mostly in a circle, but we have these two little chickadees that are trying to leave the path, but not
Okay.
quite. So let me go see
So-
what that means, actually.
So yeah, if you think about what, okay, just think about logically, right?
Mhm.
So you've got some runes that are closely linked together,
Oh, it's good.
all right? Those runes are going to be interacting with each other more. But if you have a rune that is way off to the side,
Yeah.
it's less likely to have a bearing on those.
How about if one is laying on the other?
I have the same thing, I have one upside down laying on an upside down lagoos. So a lot of this really does come down to your own intuition. It's a harder thing to do when you're just starting off, but it's a fun puzzle in a way.
So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just gonna-
And what I would usually do here is I take a picture of it,
Yeah.
so you can really see how it all fell out. And then you just take a bit of time to study it. And you see which runes are upright, which runes are upside down, which runes are facing the wrong direction. And you try and figure out what's going on from there. So for example, I have a Manas way down here in the corner on its own. Not really related to the rest of the pattern, and I have 10 upright runes. So I'm going to leave Manas aside for now, and I'm going to focus on the ones that are closer together. I have in one cluster an Ansus, an Algiz, and a Thorn. The Algiz and the Thorn are right next to each other. Both are runes of protection. The Thorn is upside down, the Algiz is right side up. But they do fit really closely together. So then the question is, okay, what might that mean? And why is there an upside down Ansus pointing at them? Right? And then I have another cluster with a sideways Rhino, a sideways Iwas, a sideways Jera, and an upright Kiwas. So there's a whole bunch of sideways runes kind of in one cluster. So again, you're kind of like pondering, okay, what might that mean? And then a little bit off to the side, but not quite so much, I have a Gabo. And remember, when I talk about Gabo, it's one of those runes where no matter what you do to it, it's always facing upright. It has that particular power. So there is some element of gift or exchange positioned between the cluster with the Algiz and the Ansus and the cluster of sideways ones. There's a Gabo, an exchange placed in between them. So perhaps there is some element here where it's one thing or another, or there's some kind of trade being involved. And then on the bottom and kind of off to its side, underneath all of this is Lagus. Lagus is a rune of water. It's also a rune that has very powerful ties to the subconscious and to the dream world. So, something related to the dream world or the subconscious is at the bottom of my reading. So clearly there are also subconscious influences at work. Perhaps that upside down Manas on the very bottom is counteracting with the subconscious. And perhaps those four sideways runes in between the Gabo are more related to the subconscious, where up here, those other runes are more related to the higher self, or the conscious world. So a lot of this comes down to you're looking at patterns of your past, and you're trying to see what story that they're telling. And it may not always be immediately apparent on first sight, but if you kind of look at them, you read through the runes, and you come up with different theories, you can eventually find one that does fit the overall picture. But as I said, this is probably one of the more involved things, but I just like the history behind the 9-ring casting, because this is probably the oldest form of runic divination, most likely. It probably all started somewhere from here, and over time it has evolved into the process that we now use. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Which one is that one again? It's right here, I'm trying to think, I don't think, I have it over
I
here.
think that's an urus.
No,
Oh, that's an ingwas.
may not be on here.
It's in the diamond shape.
Oh, so yeah, these are like probably, okay.
Yeah, ingwas has the diamond shape and it has the crisscrossy shape.
And this one doesn't have the crisscross, it just has.
Yeah, so sometimes when you're looking up ingwas online, you will find the diamond shape instead of the crisscrossy shape. As far as I can tell, it's just a matter of which source you're using.
Sure.
I like the crisscrossy shape.
Me too.
So what does it mean if they're sideways again?
If they're sideways, you're often referring to a weakening of the power as opposed to outright negation of it.
Okay.
So there could be some form of impediment or other influence acting upon the rune.
So if it's the one for danger and it's inverse, that means it'd be considered weakened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Bless you.
So yeah, this is something that you can definitely play around with a lot. It's,
That makes a lot of sense.
you know, but it's just, okay.
These wouldn't be necessarily used for clarification. If they're on the sides part of the draw, are they part of the original?
Well,
set? They could be.
that again is where it kind of depends. A lot of with the rune casting, there is no set answer to how it lays out.
Gotcha.
You gotta kind of eye the runes and look for the patterns and say, okay, I see a pattern. If you look over the whole thing, you see, okay, here's what's all laid out in front of you like I was doing. So you have like, okay, so there's one down here, there's one here, there's a cluster here, there's a cluster there, there's one kind of off to the side here. How do they all relate to each other? Where are they in position to each other? What do the runes mean in those positions? Because there's a lot of tangles to this thread. In a way, it's nice because it does give you the widest angle on the tapestry. But because it gives you that wider angle on the tapestry of what's going on, you're also going to see a lot more things. And the reason why we focus on the runes that are upright versus the runes that are upside down is the runes that are upside down, so you can't actually see the rune, are asking to be left out. And as in any other casting, when an object asks to be left out of it, you respect that and you do not include it in your reading.
Okay,
So
so,
to do a 9-rune casting, that's why you toss until you have 9 upright runes or until you have no runes left in your bag.
okay, that would explain then that when they flipped over, they didn't even have the. Okay, never mind, that simplifies things then. I mean, take these out.
Yeah, exactly. So if those were flipped upside down,
Yeah.
then you aren't gonna worry about it anymore. You're gonna be like, okay, these runes, they're staying out of it. So yeah, this is like I said, so flipped upside down, so it's just the blank side. That means leave it out. If it's upside down or if it's sideways, upside down, if you follow that system, upside down means it's reversed. Sideways means there's a weakening or lessening of the influence. Upright means full power. You know, if you don't follow that system, which is again a totally legitimate theory of runology, then you just look at the rune itself and you ignore the direction that it's facing. You don't care if it's upside down, sideways, twisty, curled. But again, always respect if the rune is facing upside down with blank side up.
And up means full power, right?
Yep, up means full power. I'm just including, of course, the meaning of inverse and reversed runes, because obviously if I just say, well, it doesn't make any difference what you do, it's not gonna make any difference, but I wanna make sure everyone understands what it is. So if it does come across that way to you when you're doing a reading or working with runes, you have that as a baseline.
Well, it's not a matter that you don't want to do that. Well, I mean, that's true. I don't want to say that, but you would be irresponsible as a teacher of the rune stuff if you didn't say, well, these people feel this. If you did like, oh, it doesn't matter, then that would be me saying like your own personal preferences and kind of influencing the stuff. That to me tells me that by you including that shows that you're a very good teacher in that sense to give people the knowledge of that.
Exactly, and if you choose to follow it, you follow. If you choose not to, you choose not to. I'm not gonna take either side. I just want to inform everyone, educate you, and go from there. So that's it for tonight's class. If you don't have any further questions, it's not 10 o'clock, is it?
No, it's not.